Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 2, Episode 29. I didn't think it was going to be this heavy. I didn't know Episode 29 was right here. That's a lot of episodes, man. We have been doing this since the start of the season, before the start of the season, and man, it just keeps piling on. But nonetheless, same crew, aside from Adal Ramoli, he's not with us, but Mario Russo as your host, Evan Davis and Jared Rotenberg below me. We have a big episode today, and for the first time in a long time, we will not be dipping our toe into any current Leafs news, but that doesn't mean we don't talk about them. If you want to see some Maple Leafs news, keep up to date with their storylines and their offseason, all that kind of jazz surrounding this, whatever you want to call them, group, insert the dislike there, but you can find it on DSN. Jared himself wrote an article about the Maple Leafs and some possible offseason stuff, and as well, reviewing the first round. I wouldn't say collapse, but the first round between the Maple Leafs and the Tampa Bay Lightning. So definitely go check that out. There's going to be a lot more Maple Leaf content coming out in the upcoming days. I actually have an article coming out myself, Adal Ramoli, and a friend from the show, Nicholas D'Agostino. He's been keeping up to date with a bunch of other players, including Nick Robertson, where he may fall in the roster next season. So take a look at that. Again, dynastysportsnetwork.ca. But today, although we talk about the one Canadian team we love the most, we're going to talk about a couple Canadian teams, and we're going to start it off with the Edmonton Oilers. Listen, we did not expect this from last week. The transition between 7, 8, 9 days, whenever we were back on this show, it's been a bit of a turn, and the Oilers are in a pretty good spot right now, a lot better than what we thought they were going to be like as of right now, up 3-1. Heading into a pivotal Game 5 tonight. Aside from a 9-6 loss that they suffered in Game 1, the Oilers have taken it highly to the Calgary Flames, both on the ice and where it matters most, the win column. They are up in that series big time. McDavid, 11 points in just 4 games. Draisaitl, he has just as many assists as McDavid has points in that span. And Evander Kane, the guy who the Edmonton Oilers were the only one that wanted to go take a chance on him because he was available to all the teams, but the Edmonton Oilers were the team that swooped in and got him 5 goals in his last 2 games. The offensive heavy Oilers are hitting the Flames where it matters most, where it hurts the most, and earning key contribution from the star players, because they have a plethora of them, and the depth players as well, depending on how you define depth. That's been a common theme on this show, but regardless, they're getting offensive production from all angles of the ice. Jared, this is the question you've been waiting for to answer, and quite frankly, I needed some answers too, because I was in the same boat with you. The roster construction of the Edmonton Oilers was something to behold. I mean, we saw Kent Holland bring in but the top heavy players were there in Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins, if you want to throw his name in there, McDavid. They had the big lettuce at the top, and then they just sort of didn't add anything around them. The team didn't have the depth that was helping them contribute. It certainly didn't really help them contribute in the first round, which is kind of where our conversation led towards. And it hasn't looked like it has ever gotten better until, of course, this series. Lo and behold, they're up 3-1 and they're getting production all around the lineup. And you got to ask the question, man, they're 1 win away from being halfway towards hoisting the cup. Is this a defined, I didn't think I'd ask this, Jared. I can see it in your face. I didn't even think I'd be asking this question. Is this a defined playoff roster, man? Is this capable of going the distance? Because it's a bit weird of what we've seen in the past. In the past, we've seen so many different teams, champions rather, dictate what is needed to get your team over the line. The St. Louis Blues, I'll bring them up because they've been the hot commodity around the hockey world recently. When they won in 2019, it was a full team effort from January 1st onwards. They sprinted towards the playoffs. They did not look like they were slowing down in the playoffs. Everyone did what they had to do, including the biggest piece of them all, the biggest question mark for many teams in Jordan Binnington. He got it done, and it showed that a team effort and goaltending can get you over that hump. And then you go look at the Tampa Bay Lightning over the last 2 years, going for the 3rd one in a row. It's been getting the star production, getting the production goal, because that's always a necessity, and then getting the depth pieces to complement that offense. So there's always a different combination of what elements can help where. And at the end of the day, they help you get a cup. But we've never seen something like this where a team structured like Edmonton, so top heavy as they may be, is this the new sort of roster construction? Evan, I might tie it into baseball for a little bit here, but remember we were talking on Breaking News Bears. Again, you could also check that out on DSN, where the Texas Rangers, they tried to, I know it's a completely different scenario, but they're in a rebuild and they're adding heavy first and then the young guys. Not really similar, but the heavy guys and growing outwards. Something that the Edmonton Oilers have been doing for the last 2-3 years. But Jared, I do want to ask you this question, and I'm waiting for this answer. Are they a defined playoff team? Are you going to double down on them, or are you going to give them the credit that they deserve, up 3-1 against a really strong Calgary side, or so we thought. What are your thoughts on this roster, and are they capable of going the distance?
Well, for starters, I'm going to start by saying I'm going to give them their credit based on the way they're playing. They're playing phenomenal hockey right now. And I think watching the games throughout the series, they are impressing me and they are looking very good. However, I'm going to say when looking at how the roster's built, I had a lot of criticism with them all year long. And I'm not going back on the criticism I had. I mean, we didn't make up those flaws in the roster out of nowhere. They were there. There's a lot of flaws in terms of the bottom six guys in their team. I don't think their I don't think their defense is the strongest. And as well, throughout the season, Mike Smith was never really playing as well as he's playing right now. There was a lot of question marks in net. So I don't take back the criticism I had of their roster. I think those flaws didn't go anywhere. They still have those flaws. But you know what? If this team was going to go anywhere, we knew it would have to be from Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and right now, obviously, Nugent Hopkins, Hyman, and Evander Kane as well are adding that production. And you know what? Like, good for them. They're finding a way to step up at the right time and find their success. I still don't take back my criticisms, though, because looking at who's putting up the points right now, of course, the top of their team's point scoring right now, it's covered by the names I already mentioned. But beyond that, looking at their bottom six, I mean, they have Taylor Yamamoto's their one bottom six player that has 6 points right now in 11 games. But other than that, they have Ryan McLeod, 2 points in 11 games. Josh Archibald, 1 point in 10 games. Derek Ryan, 1 point in 10 games. Warren Fogle, 0 points in 8 games. So, like, I still don't take back the fact that they don't have the best depth on their team. They aren't the best defensive team. I mean, reading out the players they have in terms of their defense, they aren't guys I'd call the strongest defensively. And as well, Mike Smith, yes, he's playing well right now, but I still wouldn't say going into the playoffs, and even now, I wouldn't predict that to be a goaltender that I'd pick to take a team to a Stanley Cup. But I don't take back the flaws I had. I don't think they're a perfectly built team. But ultimately, the playoffs are about who steps up at the right time, and credit to the Edmonton Oilers because they are playing well right now, despite the fact that I still wouldn't call them a flawless team because they do have obvious flaws. But good for them. They're playing well right now, and I'm not going to say I wish negative on them. I mean, I love Zach Hyman. I hope he finds success. And honestly, it's nice to see a team with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, such a top-heavy team like that. Usually in past playoffs, maybe it has to do with how the games are reffed, whatever. Usually teams built that way aren't really able to find that playoff success and carry the team. But right now, the way they're playing, obviously their production isn't coming from the bottom six. It's coming purely from the top guys. But right now, credit to them, it's working.
Yeah, and I mean, keep going to the well until it runs dry, right? And that's what they've been doing. But do you think this is going to be able to keep up if they, and I'm talking hypotheticals here, if they end up getting either a win tonight in the pivotal game 5, or they get a win down the road because they're in the driver's seat of the series, as we know, is it going to be sustainable enough? And what happens if the depth starts to complement those top players? We've never seen a performance like this from Connor McDavid, or quite frankly, any player in the last decade or so. This is unheard of. And him and Leon Draisaitl tag teaming it side by side, and you're getting the production, which I think we'll talk about Mike Smith in a little bit. But if the depth is going to mix in the upcoming, not even only this series, but maybe an upcoming series, do you see any boundaries being pushed with this team, or is it still just a matter of there's still the flaws evident in this team, and it's probably going to be the likely one that brings them down? What are your thoughts on if the pieces do start falling in place? Because I agree with you. We're seeing a big chunk of their success come from what we sort of really expected had to happen if they wanted to get the success. But what if the other pieces start to add to the puzzle? How far can this train keep going?
Listen, I'm not one that's going to bet against Connor McDavid. So if he keeps playing like that, really the sky is the limit. However, if you're talking about my predictions, chances are, unless something miraculous happens, I would assume that they're going to end up playing the Colorado Avalanche in the next round. My prediction there, I'm going Colorado all day. I still think chances are with a team as strong as the Colorado Avalanche, they would be able to shut down the Edmonton Oilers and those top guys because that's really what it's going to take to beat the Edmonton Oilers. You don't really have to worry much about their bottom six production. It's you shut down a couple names and really the job should be done for you. So looking at my predictions, I'm not going to predict Edmonton to be that team that ends up lifting the cup. I still see those flaws. I'm staying consistent on my opinion with this team. I don't think they have that perfect roster that really emulates other teams from past history that have lifted the cup. But listen, I didn't bet that they would beat the Calgary Flames either. And right now it looks like they have a very good chance of doing that. So if they keep playing the way they're playing right now, they could very well prove me wrong. And I'm not saying they're incapable of proving me wrong because they're playing very good hockey right now. But I still, when looking at their roster, I just see those flaws that I've kind of seen all year long, where they have those star powers. Never once in my criticisms of the Oilers was I saying Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl aren't good enough. I was never criticizing those two, but the question is, when are they going to get production from the other guys? And yes, Nugent Hopkins, Hyman, and Evander Kane have stepped up majorly, but now I think it's about time that, like, I'd like to see a lot more from the bottom six. Their defense, if they want to take a team like Colorado out, the defense is really going to need to step up big time. And Mike Smith, he's playing well right now, but still he's letting in a goal from 100-something feet away. So I think you're going to need a goalie like that to step up big time when you have guys like Nathan McKinnon and Cale Makar rushing at you. So I'm not going to predict the Edmonton Oilers to win the Cup. That isn't a team that I think is built to win it. But I would not be shocked if a team like Connor McDavid playing like a man on a mission right now, I wouldn't be shocked if they prove me wrong. And if these big guys keep producing the way they are, they have what it takes to prove me wrong. And honestly, I want to see a Canadian team do it, so I'm not really betting against them.
Well, I mean, you're going to get a Canadian team coming out of this as a result and facing off against probably the best entertainment we kind of want to see if the Colorado Avalanche end up going through. We'll be talking to them in just a bit, but if they end up going through and they're going to face off against one of these two Canadian teams, boy, is it going to be a treat to watch. You said if you were a betting man, you wouldn't go against McDavid. I'm going to turn this one over to the betting man himself, Evan Davis. Listen, Evan, I was talking about a bunch of other teams that have been in the mix of Stanley Cup championships. St. Louis Blues came to mind, Tampa Bay Lightning, and you could go as far back as you would have liked. You're going to see a bunch of common elements within a squad, different things that sort of support them on their quest towards the Stanley Cup. The Edmonton Oilers, unorthodox as it sounds, they're built from the top out. All right. They got their top players and they want to work their way down. The depth at the bottom, this last line, the third line is not as strong as the top two. But I mean, this unorthodox theory, I was telling Jared, it could possibly work out in the end for them. They're up 3-1 in the trying to go to the conference finals. This could possibly be the formula, a different formula that we have not seen in a very long time that could finally find success. But I think the one missing piece here, and tell me if I'm wrong, Mike Smith. I don't know why I blanked on that, but yeah, Mike Smith. I'm sorry for the radio pause. They're very annoying, but Mike Smith, I don't think he's played up to his biggest potential. And if his biggest potential was, for the Oilers fans listening in on this, if his highest ceiling was pushing the LA Kings to 7 games, that can't be your highest ceiling if you have Stanley Cup aspirations. I'm going to ask you this. Do they have Stanley Cup aspirations? Should they have Stanley Cup aspirations? And if he gets hot, because I don't think he's been at his hottest point yet, if Mike Smith gets hot, is he the missing piece of this puzzle that's going to put this team over the top?
Well, yeah, definitely. I mean, like, he has had blunders throughout the playoffs, and I can't really blame, Edmonton against LA, because Jonathan Quick was vintage Jonathan Quick throughout that entire series. I mean, I watched every game, and he just made a 36-save shutout in Game 4 when they really needed a win. And honestly, in Game 7 too, he did everything he could in that series to make it go 7. But I do think Mike Smith definitely needs to step up. But I also think the Oilers are playing fine, even with a couple blunders here or there. And Jared, I want to go back to your points. I mean, the bottom 6 guys that you're mentioning, none of those guys were really brought in to score goals or get points for them. And if you look at, I look at this Oilers team as 2019 St. Louis Blues team, where they aren't top heavy, but they're just getting points from 6 consistent players. And that's what the Edmonton Oilers are doing. And then they had the grinders on the bottom 6. And for St. Louis, that was Patrick Maroon. For Edmonton, it's Zach Cassian, Zach Sanford, Derek Ryan, Josh Archibald, and, Robert Thomas, Kyler Yamamoto. Like, those are comparisons that I'm drawing from these two teams. And the fact that the Calgary Flames, like, they're not, I don't know what's wrong with them. Like, I really don't know what's wrong with them. I'm going to say Duncan Keith and Evan Bouchard have been great for Edmonton this series. Darnell Nurse is really stepping up. I'm happy with the way the Edmonton Oilers are playing. I wasn't expecting this at all. Calgary was a top 5 defensive team in the NHL. And I mean, their whole first line and combined was like a plus 180 or something, like, just ridiculous. That whole first line was top 3 in plus minus. So I definitely didn't expect this, but if the Oilers go as far as McDavid and Draisaitl go, and I don't think that that's a negative. I mean, you want to have, I don't see how it's any different with Matthews and Marner. If the Leafs last year, they really, in terms of the regular season and in the playoffs, they only went as far as those 2 guys could really take them. So I don't see it as an issue. And the fact that McDavid and Draisaitl have 48 combined points, like, who cares? Like, it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, all that matters is the win. So, we have been getting them criticism for top heavy offense, but we're also seeing Evander Kane 12 goals in 11 games and Zach Hyman really steal what was it, game three for Edmonton? Yeah, on the game three to make it a 4-3, and then game kind of went from there in Edmonton's favor. So, I'm happy with the Oilers. I kind of hope they go far because at least I could say like if the Kings lost, it's to a team that ended up going far. But I definitely Mike Smith, a guy who needs to step up. And if they do play Colorado, I really wouldn't pick Edmonton to win more than 2 games in that series because Colorado's just built
Right.
defensively and offensively, and Kemper has been fantastic.
And Colorado is its own story in itself, and we'll be, like I said before, we'll be discussing it right down the road. But keeping a pin in Edmonton here, I don't know if it was ever a knock that they were going to be led from their top 2 players. I think that was sort of something that had to be expected if they wanted to get the wins strung together. And this is what we're seeing. We're seeing what they had to do, the game plan come to fruition, and slowly they're lathering on a bunch of more elements. You're seeing Mike Smith not playing to his high ceiling, like I mentioned, but playing adequately enough to outduel a really struggling Jacob Markstrom on the other end. And I kind of want to bring it towards the Calgary side of things. I know we talked a lot about Edmonton. We got to get into the Calgary side of things. And listen, they have since Ottinger, man, like this team, I had them. They're my. I'll say it right now. You guys have heard on the Leafs Line podcast for the viewers at home. They're my pick to win the Stanley Cup just because of what they had heading into the season. I thought they checked off all the boxes. The depth scoring was there. They had the big guys like Johnny Gaudreau who stepped up in the big time in round 1. They had everything. And Jacob Markstrom was a reliable goaltender both in round 1 and throughout the regular season. All signs point to this team had limitless chances at attaining greatness this year. And I guess I don't know if what it was, what was the hurdle that they tripped over. I think maybe does it lie in Jake Ottinger. Now, listen, Jake Ottinger came out on the wrong side of a terrific series. He put together Vasilevsky numbers, but ended up coming with what everyone's going to remember as the loss. And unfortunate for him, I think this set the Calgary Flames back a little. Like, I don't know if they headed into the postseason. I don't think they did because Daryl Sutter is a hard-nosed coach. He's going to whack you up into shape, and he's going to make sure that nothing is taken easy. You go into everything hard. So I don't know if they maybe took the playoffs as easy, or maybe they took the Edmonton Oilers as a slouch, but like it's not been very pretty for them at all. The offense has failed to be there. Jacob Markstrom greatly has failed to pull his end of the bargain. And listen, it's not going to be a grind to work their way back against the Oilers. It's going to be catching up to them. The Oilers are flying right over them, and they're getting everything done that they have to. They're scoring big goals. They're getting big production, and they're just swarming the crease with any opportunity that they can find. And it's going to go in if Jacob Markstrom is struggling like he is right now. It's going to be a matter of catching up and then staying ahead if the the Calgary Flames want to have any chance of working their way back in this series. But Jared, I'll throw this one over to you. Is the fire extinguished down in Calgary?
Listen, I'm not going to say the fire's extinguished. I think they're still a strongly built team, and I like the roster they have. I think looking at a comparison to the 2 teams, they should be playing a lot better than they're playing right now because I think compared to the Oilers, Calgary's deeper, and they have a lot of guys all throughout their lineup that should be playing a lot better than they are. And as well, they have a Vezina candidate in net that's absolutely playing terribly right now. So listen, if they want to step up and play to the level that they showed us they're capable of playing all season long, then I'm not going to say their season's over, and I'm going to say they're capable of getting back into this series. But as you mentioned, it's going to be a very, very tough task, and it's going to take a Herculean effort because right now, yes, I criticize how the roster is built on Edmonton, but it doesn't matter what flaws they have in their lineup. They're playing phenomenal hockey right now. And if Calgary wants any hope of getting back in this series, they're going to need to start stepping up, getting scoring from the big boys, getting that Selke level play from a guy like Elias Lindholm, who's nominated for the award for being one of the best defensive forwards, but I haven't really seen that level of play throughout this series. So Calgary has the skill to get back in this series if they want to play like it, but right now throughout this series, they really haven't. And it's a disappointing result considering going into this series, I mean, they had just come off of facing a brick wall in Jake Ottinger and a defense-heavy Dallas Stars team. Now, in my opinion, going into the series, I predicted, okay, now they're getting a little bit of a reward facing a not so shut down team in the Edmonton Oilers. I feel like they should have been able to absolutely run all over them, but they just aren't playing that way right now. And all season long, all playoffs long, they haven't played to the level that they showed us they're capable of playing throughout 82 games worth of a regular season where they were a top 5 team. So it's really disappointing the level they're playing right now, but I still think they are capable if they want to step up. But I'm just going to say, I mean, down 3-1, yes, as Leafs fans, we know it's possible to come back from, or we know that isn't the safest lead ever. But then again, right now, with how strong Edmonton's playing, it's going to be a very tough task, and it's going to take everyone who played very well throughout the regular season to get back to that level. We're going to need our production from guys like Matthew Tkachuk and Johnny Gaudreau again, but as well, we're going to need that depth to score to the way they were playing, the defense to play as phenomenal as it was all regular season long, Selke level play from Lindholm, and of course, the most important thing, Vezina level play from Jake Markstrom, who right now throughout this playoffs and throughout especially this series has just simply not given us that level of play.
No, and I mean, listen, we haven't yet to see a reverse sweep in this playoffs, and reason being is because it's such a hard mountain to climb. We've seen teams come close. You want to look at the Canes and the Boston Bruins one, where I don't remember if I don't believe Boston was down 3-1, were they? Canes were up 3-1.
No. Sorry, it was because Canes are incapable of winning on the road.
That's
so
true.
Boston tied it 2-2.
Okay, but regardless, we have yet to see one, and it just remains that the mountain is so high to climb. And listen, you said it best, Jared, where you're not getting production from the guys who not only just are nominated for awards this season for personal hardware, but for guys that aren't, and guys who have been so dominant all season long. And to think, well, you would think that if you break through the hurdle, or the wall rather, that was Jake Ottinger in the last round, you think everything is so easy in the next couple of games, next couple of rounds, because of what you've had to face before and now after. Mike Smith is no Jake Ottinger, and he's not even playing like Jake Ottinger. It's just this team is down playing to such a low standard that I haven't yet to see from the Calgary Flames this season. It's really concerning. And Evan, could you shine a bit of a light on how concerning this may be for not just the Flames, but their fan base in general? When are we going to see some pushback from Daryl Sutter and his side?
I mean, you're hoping tonight.
Yeah,
I mean,
hoping.
If there is someone who knows how to come back from down 3-1, it's no other than Daryl Sutter, who did it with the Kings. But I mean, if you looked at it, even going into this series, Jacob Markstrom struggled mightily against the Edmonton Oilers. I know 2 games isn't a large sample size, at 3.54 goals against, a .884 save percentage. I think that's why everyone's been hammering over 6.5 in every game, because Mike Smith's numbers aren't even that much better. I think they're actually worse than Jacob Markstrom's are. But I don't know. I'm gonna blame the Calgary depth. Tyler Toffoli, Andrew Mangiapane, Michael Backlund. These guys have not. Yeah, I think Toffoli has 2 goals this entire playoffs. I think they both came in the Dallas series, if I'm not mistaken. But I mean, they're just. I don't know. I don't know if it's a matter of Edmonton's defense or just the fact that Jacob Markstrom has literally sucked the life out of this team. Because, I mean, when you're down 2-1 in a series and you give up a goal 21 seconds into a game to Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, gets an empty netter, basically, like, you're already feeling depleted right from the start. And that's not what you need to have happen. So, look, this is all on Jacob Markstrom. I'm just going to say, because he's sucking the life out of this team. Anytime Calgary had, like, they tied it 3-3, and 2 minutes later, it's another breakaway goal. And I get that it's a breakaway, but for God's sakes, like, you got to save something here. Like, you're in the National Hockey League. Like, we can't feel sympathy for you after every breakaway. I mean, the great goalies know when to save them. So this is on Markstrom here, but at the same time, Calgary, they got to wake up. And I mean, they're on home ice tonight, so this is the best chance. And my God, if they lose on home ice, people are going to question if Daryl Sutter should deserve that Jack Adams in Vegas next month.
And I mean, I'm gonna end on here about the Calgary Flames. Matthew Tkachuk said in a press conference, not directly, but referred to Connor McDavid and how successful he has been in. I'm not gonna even say shutting down, because it's not the defensive side of his game that's been making the headlines. It's been the offensive side of the game. He's overpowering the Calgary Flames. Do you see this as true, Jared? I'll talk to you, and then I'll throw it over to Evan. Do you see McDavid single-handedly dethroning what we thought was going to be the giant Calgary Flames, the big red machine? It's looking like he's just single-handedly a fire crew out there, extinguishing anything he can see in his way. Is this just a McDavid show here and the result of a star player turning it on and then some? Or is it just the self-inflicted wounds from the Calgary Flames and Jacob Markstrom unable to make a save, and the defense unable to contain such great players that the Edmonton Oilers possess? And so on and so forth. There's so many reasons that can play a role.
Yeah, well, of course, McDavid is the shining name that
He
is
is.
absolutely lighting up the Calgary Flames. However, it's not just him. I mean, Leon Draisaitl's playing phenomenal. Of course, Hyman, yes, he's been gifted breakaways and such like that, left, right, and center. But at the end of the day, Hyman's playing phenomenal. Vander Kane's playing phenomenal. Nugent Hopkins just had a 2-goal game. So as much as, yes, it's not the depth of the Edmonton Oilers that has carried them, but of course, that top six. I mean, all throughout the top six, you have guys putting up big performances and just shutting down that team from the top down. And pretty much, yeah, like it's not just on one player. I wouldn't just say it's you have to shut down McDavid and you'll be fine, because Leon Draisaitl and everyone else is just as capable. So it's a big problem right now for Calgary, and it's a team that I didn't expect this to be their problem. All year long, they showed me that they are capable of playing a great shutdown defensive style game. It's not only that they were getting their regular season wins. That's all fine and dandy, but on top of that, it's the fact that their gameplay looked like it would have been able to absolutely translate well into the playoffs, but simply put, it hasn't. Like, I had very high expectations for this team, as did all four of us on the Leafs Line podcast, and for good reason. We saw 82 games worth of a sample size of Calgary playing a great defensive game that should have been more than capable of shutting down the superstars of the Edmonton Oilers. But the way they're playing right now, they trickled their way through the Dallas Stars, and yes, it has to do with the hot goaltender, but Calgary wasn't playing phenomenal in that first round, and right now they're absolutely getting dominated offensively by, I'd argue personally, in my opinion, a worse team than them. That, yes, they have the superstars, but I don't think Edmonton has as much depth and as much firepower that Calgary has. But ultimately, it's the big boys on Edmonton that are showing up and shutting down those scorching hot or previously scorching hot Calgary Flames.
Davis, what about you? McDavid single-handedly, or is it just a amalgamation of guys stepping up at the right times and the lack thereof on the Calgary Flames part?
I think Jared said it best. I mean, no one can stop Connor McDavid.
It's looking that way, man. Like, this is not a joke. It's looking like he is unstoppable.
I can't remember if maybe it was also game 3 when they had the goal disallowed, and then he was like 20 seconds later, like, fine, I'll do it myself. That
Puck don't
quote.
lie. Puck don't lie.
I mean, yeah, it's McDavid, Draisaitl, everyone else kind of falling. Like, I'm not going to discredit Evander Kane, but you have been playing with 2 of the top 3 players in the NHL. So he's been a man on a mission as well. Not all these goals are just like easy tap-ins, but no, definitely the depth is showing up. And maybe it's that just added boost that it's the Battle of Alberta. These teams don't like each other. And, obviously one team just feels more, like, it just seems more hungry to win. And that's the Oilers, and that's why they've won 3 straight.
And it's the hunger in the playoffs. We see it all the time, proving them wrong, proving the people wrong, proving us wrong. Let's get that one out of the way. And that's what playoffs are for, man. Cinderella stories, unnamed stories, guys stepping up, uncannily guys stepping up. That's what makes this thing so great. But was something that isn't really too great, and we'll be moving it next year. The Battle of Alberta, from the Battle of Alberta to the Battle of Florida. The President's Trophy curse lives to see yet another year. The Florida Panthers, who finished first in the National Hockey League this season, are going golfing. And I hear the golf course is very nice in Florida. I've yet to ever golf there, but from the southern coast of the United States, I don't think you can go wrong. And they're going to be seeing a good chunk of that this summer, and much earlier than they might have expected. The wheels just falling off for the Panthers. The best scoring team in the NHL was bested by an even better goalkeeper in the second round. Outscored 13-3 in the series that was capped off by the team getting shut out in the last game, throwing 49 shots that come ups with no prevail. Andre Vasilevsky, man, I'm not going to give you a clap because I think you're getting that enough from the Tampa Bay crowd, but boy, did he put on the big boy pants, not just in elimination games, but he stuck to what he did in elimination games for 3 other ones. What a performance from him. Evan, I'll throw it right back to you. Just give me some context, man. This guy, we knew he was good when he had to be good. And of course, those elimination games, but games 1, 2, 3, they were not only one of the best in his career, but they were more than sufficing what he had to get done. And the elimination one, stellar Andre Vasilevsky. I would kind of consider that one of the best performances of his career. It's up there, man. And boy, is he a man on the mission since that Leafs series. Can you speak to his play and just what it has done for the Tampa Bay Lightning, a team that everyone thought was done, sick, tired, didn't have the hunger in them. They couldn't go for the three-peat. Lo and behold, without Braden Point, might I add, Andre Vasilevsky out of the leaves and throw in the Florida Panthers where they belong, I guess, in the dust. But speak to this play, please, because we gotta get through this.
Well, I mean, I wrote an article on it too about just the play of Vasilevsky. I mean, a .981 save percentage in round 2, and I was saying, like, it's not like Bobrovsky played terrible. Like, he had numbers that should win you a series. The issue is that Andre Vasilevsky played incredible, and I'm not going to discredit the Panthers here because, like, watching the games, it's not like they're shooting at pucks from, the corner or like the top of the circle. Like, they were trying to get the puck in the back of the net, and Andre Vasilevsky made every highlight reel save you could imagine. And I'm going to go a step further. I'm going to say that Game 4 performance is probably one of the greatest from a goalie in a closeout game. That has 49 saves. I mean, my God. And it's not like these are crappy shots. Like, it's hard. And, obviously Florida led the league in goals, broke the record for most goals scored in a single season. And, it was their first time getting shut out in Game 4 the entire year, including playoffs. So I don't know, but it just Vasilevsky, man, like their defense, Tampa's defense won them that series, which I thought I would never say from a series that involves Kucherov, obviously no point, but Stamkos, Hedman. I mean, McDonough was a huge X factor in this series. He robbed Huberdeau in Game 4 when they were on the penalty kill. I mean, Nick Paul, Brandon Hagel, the new additions are just stopping pucks from going past the crease if they got even an inch past Vasilevsky. But I don't know what happened. I mean, Florida they tried so hard, and I don't think it's Florida just wasn't successful. I just think Vasilevsky was just that great. And I've never seen a series where he's just been this dominant in each game. Like, we'll see here and there in a playoff series, with the cup, like maybe a game here, a game here, a game here. Like, he was like that the entire playoffs round versus Florida. And I just feel bad for Florida because there was nothing they could do.
Well, I mean, Vasi this, Vasi that. But what I've kind of noticed from the Tampa Bay goaltender is that he's the glue that keeps this team together, the thing that keeps this team moving into the right direction. Listen, as a team, and we've seen this you could throw this in the Leafs perspective, you could throw this in any team perspective, your goaltender is your biggest weapon, if you will. Like, the offense is able to take more chances. They don't have to get as much frustrated on themselves because of missing said golden opportunities, because they know they got a big wall in goal to keep it alive, to bail them out, if you will. The defense, same thing. They could take dangerous pinches whenever they'd like, because they know that if they don't get it done and they get caught lacking or whatever you want to call it, they have the goaltender to get it done. You can apply this to just about any position, any element on the ice, and they know that they have faith in Vasilevsky, and Vasi has faith in this team. It's a vice versa relationship that allows Tampa Bay Lightning to go through as far as they'd like. And I think that's why they've won. And I hate to bring back last year and the year before, but that's a huge factor in why they've won cups. It's almost like the perfect formula in the modern day hockey to hoist a Stanley Cup. If you have a great goaltender that is ridiculously capable of bailing your team out when it matters, winning those big games, it only pushes the envelope further and further and further of how far your team can go. It pushes that expiration date. And man, credit to Andre Vasilevsky, a 981. I don't think we're ever going to be seeing that again. And if we do, it's probably going to be from him himself, because that guy just continues to top himself again and again and again. But I want to get into the biggest storyline of this series, not just Tampa Bay winning, because that wasn't always the thing that was in the question. It was what we're going to see, what kind of response were we going to see from the Florida Panthers from last year, where they lost to the Tampa Bay Lightning, to this year. It's the second round of the Battle of Florida, and it just, again, did not go the way. And you could argue it was even worse for the Florida Panthers. Jared, I asked you this question with the Edmonton series. I'm going to ask you it again with the Florida Panthers here, the construction of the roster. Now, we all know this. They are the best scoring team in the NHL. They were one of the best scoring teams in the postseason. They have all the weapons at their disposal. And the irony, so much irony in this one, outscored 13-3, shut out for the second straight year in a row in an elimination game where all the chips, you have to be as desperate as you can. You can see, hot goaltender, and probably that's the case, but you look at the offensive things and it's only offense, man. Like, were they flawed from the start of the season when their roster was set on the table? And you can even bring up the trade deadline when they went and all in and acquired Claude Giroux, another ridiculously offensive option. Was the top heavy, I wouldn't even say top heavy, was the offensive heavy lineup the wrong call once again for the Florida Panthers, who just steadily are unable to learn from last year's mistakes too, where it was a big hefty thing with them? Is that the Achilles heel for them? Too offensive heavy, because defense simply couldn't get it done. And you said it best, Evan Bobrovsky. He put up great numbers, but not good enough. Not good enough against one of the best goaltenders, the best goaltender in the NHL. But Jared, flawed roster? Yes, no. And if you can bring in the word frauds in this answer, oh boy, will we be in for a treat here.
Listen, I don't know if I'm going to say it's necessarily their roster in general that had the flaws. I think it's just the play style they utilize, where all year long, I was kind of having trouble imagining how this play style would translate well into the playoffs. Lo and behold, they almost got shut down in the first round by the 8th seed Washington Capitals. Then they met a really tough opponent in the Tampa Bay Lightning. And yes, they played solid in those games, but at the end of the day, all people will remember that it took 4 games to sweep them out of there. So they are a good team. I'm not going to deny the Florida Panthers have a lot of firepower offensively. You can't deny that they were the best scoring team in the entire NHL this season. But personally, I was someone that never really was sold on the way this team plays. I think they often relied on outscoring their defensive flaws. Lo and behold, against a defensive shutdown team like the Tampa Bay Lightning, who of course has Andrei Vasilevskiy in net, you couldn't really outscore your defensive flaws here. And I think this was a problem all year long, where constantly they were relying on, okay, they'd be down by a few goals in a game, but they knew they had the scoring ability to outscore those problems. Well, against a team like Tampa, they're not going to allow you that chance. And ultimately, I don't know if I necessarily use the word fraud, but they did not play to the level that they showed they were capable of in the regular season. They absolutely got shut down throughout this series by a team that plays way more of a playoff style than they do. And all year long, I was never sold on them. And ultimately, it got proven why, because they just don't play that style that has proven to work in the playoffs. It's not a criticism of their roster as much as I don't love the way that their defense is built. They went all in on getting guys like Ben Sherratt, which that didn't prove to be a good addition. But ultimately, it's not that I think their roster needs so much changing. It's more their style of play that needs a lot of work, because in tough playoff games, in tough playoff series against those shutdown style teams, it seems to be pretty easy to steamroll those Florida Panthers. They don't play that shutdown style you need in the playoffs. Tampa learned that pretty quickly, as in 4 magical games, President's Trophy winners are out the door.
Yeah, and I mean, they got the biggest, most largest. They're joining the other 7 teams before them in the biggest participation trophy you can hand out in the NHL. But again, not able to get it done. And they had bigger aspirations than just a second round. And you can only play with fire for so long, man. You said it, Jared, where Washington, they came up the gates really shaky, and they managed to fight their way back and I guess fight tooth and nail, claw back, if you will. Florida Panther jokes, ha ha ha. But they managed to get back. They won this series. That's all fine and dandy. You took care of what you were supposed to do in the Tampa Bay fashion that you just saw, and then you just drop it against a hot goaltender. And they're that's what it was. You can only, the saying, nerf for nothing. I hate to bring up the childhood saying there, but it's for the Florida Panthers, it's offense or nothing, right? That's what they've shown, and I think that's the identity with their team right now. Evan, do you agree with this? Yes.
No, I disagree with you guys, because I look, even in this series, they're not in. I don't think of them as an offensive heavy team, because they showed that it's not like they lost every game 8-0 here. This isn't a series of Calgary and Edmonton where the first game there's 15 goals. I mean, they got in game 1, it was power play that killed them. They couldn't shut down Tampa's power play, which isn't easy to do. In game, and then in the other games, they're only giving up really 2 to 3 goals a game. The only issue is that any grade A chance they had, Andrei Vasilevskiy saved. And maybe if we got the Andrei Vasilevskiy that was playing in that Leaf series, I will say he did look shaky in that series, like just gave up blunders that he shouldn't have. But in this series, he just woke up, and maybe it's the fact that you don't have to fly from Florida to Canada. You could just literally sleep in your own bed and drive to the arena when you're playing the Panthers. But I don't think of them as an offensive heavy team. I don't think they proved that they were, because Bobrovsky played phenomenal in this series. He had great numbers. A 2.25 goals against and a 930 save percentage should win you a series. But when you're going up against the best goalie in the NHL, it's not going to work that way. And I just think they got unlucky almost. The fact that they just ran into literally Thanos, who wasn't allowing anything. And I wrote in that article, since game 7 against Toronto, Vasilevsky has stopped 181 out of 185 shots. Like, I don't think any team could get by him. And I just think Florida got unlucky, because when Andre Vasilevsky is hot, it's very hard to put out that fire. And unfortunately, that's the situation that happened. And they weren't able to score. And I don't blame them, because I watched every game. He shut them up. Like, any chance that I thought Florida had, it was either a stick save by Vasilevsky, pulling his groin, a Tampa player blocking a shot.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
He had a 12.37 goal saved above expected. That's ridiculous.
Insane. Like, I don't think that's a fault on Florida. I just think that's Vasilevsky was Vasilevsky, and you couldn't do anything about it. It was unfortunate, but I don't think they're frauds. I definitely think they'll be back here. They can only get, I think they can only get better from here. Mackenzie Weegar's still developing. Aaron Ekblad, I'm not confident he played that playoffs healthy. No. I'm so confident that he has something just to, ease the pain, because he came back from a broken foot. Yeah. It's just unfortunate. I think they'll be back here, but I mean, hopefully they don't face Tampa until the conference finals or something, or else they'll be home early again.
Well, here's the thing, and I'm not even going to dispute it. Florida rather, is going to be back here once again. I'm not going to say maybe it's against Tampa, but they're going to be in the playoffs. They can maybe be hoisting another President's Trophy, or maybe hanging that banner if they so choose to in a year's time. They are such a good team in the regular season. They're going to continue to be, because teams like that who score at that ridiculous rate, you can outscore your problems in the regular season. That's undisputed, and you're going to get a lot more wins than losses, and you're going to qualify for the playoffs. But here's where it gets a little fishy here. What do you chalk this up then to? What was this postseason? What did you learn? Was it like, oh, it's just unlucky, sweep it under the rug, go back for it next year? Because like, what is the identity of this team? I know we talk about it a lot with the Maple Leafs. What's the identity of the Florida Panthers? Just not able to get it done in the playoffs, or just get one round done in the playoffs, not get it done in the bigger stages, not get it done against the bigger opponents? What is it? Or just run into hot goaltenders and c'est la vie?
I'll be brief, because I want to let Jared have the bulk of this. Look, they can't run it back, because I've given shit for Toronto for trying to run it back, and look what happens. They have a lot of UFAs not a lot. They have a few UFAs coming up. Guys in their system that, I mean, they still have a decent farm system AHL wise. I mean, they can't run it back. But if I'm Florida, for one thing, I have a talk with the head coach. How do you go 0 for 28 on the power play and not figure it the fuck out? If I talk to Sergei Bobrovsky, I say, you have a phenomenal playoffs. Just unfortunately, the team in front of you couldn't do their part. I think he did his part. And I mean, if you're Huberdeau, Barkov, Duclair, I think you run it back with like that core. But yeah, definitely figure out what you're going to do with the bottom six. They have the pieces for it. Maybe it's just they need a defenseman or something. The market, they could definitely make a trade with a few more prospects here or there, maybe a mid-round pick. But no, you can't run it back, because it's just similar to what other teams do, where you think if you go through it again, something new will change. Maybe it won't be raining on game 4. Like, I don't know, but I'll let Jared have the bulk of it, because, it's fair.
Jared, identity of the Florida Panthers. What is it right now?
To me, I don't think they're good enough defensively. I think I give Evan credit in the sense that they are a great scoring team. Absolutely are. I'm not going to deny the fact that they're the best scoring team. And what is it? They're the best scoring team since like the lockout or something like that. Phenomenal team, amazing offensively. However, yes, I'm not going to put the blame entirely on Sergei Bobrovsky. However, 13 goals against in 4 games, including a 5-1 loss and a 4-1 loss. That just cannot happen. And I get Tampa Bay is a phenomenal team. I just played them. I know that they're a great team. I get that.
Oh yeah, what line were you on?
Pardon?
I was saying, what line are you on? Saying like you're playing.
My favorite team just played them,
Kidding.
and ultimately we lost them. I get that they're a phenomenal team, but at the end of the day, Florida's defensive style was just not capable of shutting them down. And it's not just that Tampa's big boys stepped up; it was guys all throughout their lineup. I believe a stat I saw was 9 of the 13 goals that Tampa were scored by depth players. So
Yeah, you could find that on my
all the guys throughout that lineup were stepping up, and Florida just couldn't match it. And Florida's entire identity is scoring, and when you shut down their scoring ability, they ultimately crumble. They just couldn't step up to a better team. And Tampa's a lot more built for the playoffs than they are. And ultimately, I think, yes, I'm not going to say blow it up. I'm never the type of guy that says do a reactionary change based on a loss. The big boys on that team will be back. However, as you mentioned, there's going to need to be a lot of changes, in my opinion, in that defensive core. I just don't think the defensive core, and more importantly, the defensive system they play, I don't think that leads to much playoff success. And the fact that they got so close to being taken down by the Washington Capitals showed that didn't give me much confidence. And then when they faced a hard opponent in the Tampa Bay Lightning, I'm not going to say steamrolled. There were some close games, but at the end of the day, they got swept. So I do think serious changes need to be made in terms of the system they play, the style they play, where they can't go another season of just relying on outscoring their defensive problems. They need to be able to step up and be the team shutting them down and shutting down opponents, because the strategy they play, if they run into Tampa again, which they most likely will, or even, I get we lost in the first round again, but Toronto put up a lot more of a fight than Florida did. So I think even against a team like Toronto, they would maybe run into some trouble. Like, I just don't think their all offense and nothing else strategy lends itself very well to playoff success. And ultimately, I wouldn't call this playoff run very successful. Yes, they did that one thing they hadn't done previously since 1996. So muzzle tough to them, they won a round, but ultimately, ultimately, I wouldn't say this was a successful playoff run. They tiptoed their way past a team they should have mopped the floor with, made it a lot closer than a lot of people predicted it would be, including Evan Davis, who I watched our Leaf line back, had Florida sweeping them. That one went very close. And then ultimately, with a hard task, Tampa just mopped the floor with them.
Washington.
Yeah.
So yeah, at the end of the day, I wasn't sold on them all season long, and their playoff run didn't give me any more confidence in this team. I think maybe the players and the personnel isn't what needs to change, but their system of play, that needs some changes, and that's going to come with probably another year of Andrew Brunette, who is going to need to look at, okay, maybe I just can't tell these guys to go all offense and nothing else, because at the end of the day, when you face a good defensive team in the playoffs, they're going to get shut down again. Like, it's the way they play just doesn't lend itself well to playoff success.
And it's a playoff to forget. No success was earned for this Florida Panthers team, at least with their expectations that they set out with a terrific regular season, the best regular season that shows a lot of things. They're joining a long list of President's Trophy winners unable to get it done. I think that's a discussion for another day in regards to that curse and talking about whether the regular season matters or not. I don't want to get into that. I just want to get into what you mentioned, Jared, of the ability to turn another switch, have a couple switches in mind where you could play that offensive game that you already possess, but at the same time too, when that's not working, when those guys aren't able to get it by a hot goaltender, say, you turn over a defensive game and you can play a hard defensive game, a hard nosed style of play, and find ways to get it done. I believe they call the Tampa Bay line the Tampa Bay findaways, if I'm not mistaken, because they just continuously find a way. I heard it a couple of times on the radio. That's kind of why it came to mind. But Tampa Bay findaways, they pride themselves off of that identity because they always find a way to get it done. And this one was through just a hot goaltender and death piece stepping up to complement the heavy offensive parts. The Florida Panthers, I know they're in their premature stages of trying to become a powerhouse, and they have a lot of years to come. They're going to be back in this position in the next couple of years. But you got to possess that mentality. There was one thing I wanted them to learn from the last season against the Tampa Bay Lightning in that series to now was to find a way to push through, especially a hot goaltender. It just didn't happen. That's what offseason are meant for. It's going to be take a lot of stuff, going back to the drawing board a little bit and reshuffling some pieces for the Florida Panthers because they need to possess a two-way game if they want to have any success, not just in the next regular season, because I think they'll be fine, but in the playoffs where it matters the most. And a former Maple Leaf who's been getting it done where it matters the most. Nazem, Kadri, Nazem, the Dream. We're going to talk about, I don't think we ever had a segment or anything close to that, or Kadri's name even be uttered on the Leafs Line podcast, but he's going to get some love before we throw it off on the show. The former Maple Leaf, Nazem Kadri, he's found himself yet again at the pinnacle of the hockey world, of the hockey conversation. In game 3, if you guys do not know, I'll give you the context. I know I'm going a little bit further back in this series, but it's worth talking about because of sort of what happened, the story that sort of transpired from it, and of course, the events that transpired from it, because not only were they a little bit embarrassing, but the redemption from Nazem Kadri, which I'll discuss, is just so terrific that has to be shared. But again, alas, game 3 between the Avs and the Blues, Kadri was pushed into the goaltender Jordan Binnington while dashing towards the mouth of the Blues goal. And the goaltender, well, he took it, the brute end of that collision. He was out for the game. He couldn't finish it. He left immediately after that, and he did not take it lightly. He took it to the post-game presser of Nazem Kadri, where he threw a water bottle. I don't know if it was full or empty because I don't really care about that. But regardless, as any professional hockey player would, he chucked it to Nazem Kadri's direction in a post-game press conference, which, I mean, I don't think it's okay, but who am I to judge, right? But sad as it is, that wasn't the most embarrassing moment of that night, or more so that 48, 28 hours, whatever you want to call it. There was more embarrassing moments involving the former Maple Leaf as he received racist messages, death threats, all the stuff on social media that is just unacceptable and should not be anywhere near and should not be sniffing around the game of hockey or the world of sports in general. Towards his, people were condemning his altercation with Binnington, all that stuff. A lot of hated Blues fans. A lot of shame should be going your way, because that should not really be in the game of hockey. But I don't got to go through that because we at least here know this should not have a place here. But in light of the hate and the toxicity that not only has Nazem Kadri faced this past week, he's faced it throughout his career. This is nothing new for him. And I mean, he posted his best playoff performance to follow it up. The next game, game 4, I believe it was, he nets a trio of goals and an assist to lead his side over the St. Louis Blues. I got to ask you guys this. Jared, you've watched him both growing up, the tail end of his Leafs career. Now you're watching him in a different uniform, in a different number, but still making massive headlines in the hockey world. What does this show about Nazem Kadri's strength, not just with the hockey stick, because getting 3 goals and an assist, getting 4 points, and single-handedly carrying your team over another team in a postseason game, that's something special. But the strength between the ears, the strength to block out all the hate, all the toxicity that should not, people don't deal with this on a daily basis. Regular people like me and you aren't going to be going off after this podcast, regardless of what we say or what we do on this show, and getting those massive, terrible threats like that. This is unheard of, and he's got to deal with it and turn it around in a night's time. Really difficult task. And I'm not going to say it's through practice or anything. It's just a different breed of a player. What can you say about him, his perseverance, his strength, not only on the hockey side, but on the personal side as well?
Well, in terms of how he's kind of responded to all this hate and stuff, absolutely all the kudos in the world to Nazem Kadri and the way he's handled this. It's absolutely phenomenal. But for starters, I just want to say he should never have to kind of build on hate and racism with, oh, but I had a good game, so it's awesome. Like it should never have even came to that. None of the on ice things should have led to him getting the messages he was getting. And there was a Twitter user, I forget who, but someone posted some screenshots of the messages he was getting. Absolutely disgusting stuff, like absolutely terrible. And another user on top of that made a very good point that the hate he was getting is going to ultimately end up getting swept up in, oh, but look at the result after he had a hat trick, all is well in the world. No, like a good performance afterwards does not justify any of the treatment he got throughout. So I just wanted to kind of say that awesome for Kadri and the way he handled it. I'm going to give him all the praise in the world. But the fact that his great performance is being used as a way to like justify, oh, but it ended well. No, racism in this world doesn't end well, regardless of good on him. He handled it well, kept it on the ice, and made them pay for it on the score sheet. But ultimately, at the end of the day, disgusting stuff. The messages were terrible, and good on him that he found a way to make some kind of good out of it. But the fact that it even had to come to that is a whole other conversation in itself. It's just terrible. And I know it's not all Blues fans, but to the Blues fans that were doing that, to the so-called hockey fans that were doing that, like, I'm sorry, you can't call yourself a hockey fan if you're going after a hockey player and saying this stuff you're saying. So disgusting stuff on those people. But regardless, good on Kadri that he didn't lash out and he kept it entirely on the ice, and he knows there's some shitty people in this world that are going to say things. I imagine he's been dealing with that all his life, unfortunately, but good on him for finding a way to score the goals and shut those people up and whatever. But it's just ultimately, it's great on how the Kadri situation went on beyond that, but the situation itself is just absolutely terrible. And the fact that those people call themselves hockey fans and send those messages to a hockey player is disgusting. Good on him, though. I've watched this guy all my life, ever since he became a Leafs fan. Great player. Ultimately, what led to him kind of leaving Toronto was at times he couldn't really control his emotions, and that resulted in to twice in a row be suspended from the playoffs. This year, it's not suspensions or making people pay physically. He's finding a way to make them pay on the score sheet, and that's what you got to do, and he's doing an awesome job of that. All the credit in the world to Nazem Kadri for, despite all the noise surrounding his name, he's finding a way to just play hockey and do a phenomenal job for the Colorado Avalanche. But again, just it's like, this is not the stuff you want to be talking about when talking about the hockey world. It's disgusting, the things that got said when referring to him.
And I mean, being a pest should not have to come with that sort of consequence. That's a hockey thing. I know Adamo, he's sort of prides himself off of being a pest on the ice, and that's the kind of player he is. That's the identity he wishes to pertain on the ice, and that's perfectly fine. Hockey needs those kind of players, but they don't need that kind of response from an outcry of hockey fans looking to grasp onto loose straws and stuff that have no water held to it by any means. But Jared, I want to go back to what you said before about the suspensions and all that or surrounding Nazem Kadri. That's been a common theme with this player. I mean, I grew up watching it. It was unfortunately for his part, what ended off his career in Toronto. And I'm not going to sit there and talk about trades here because that's not what we're here for. We've already said and done that stuff. It's a matter of how the roles have sort of reversed. This is sort of a not teaching moment, but a learning curve for Nazem Kadri, where he was the guy who in the mix and giving all the hate and getting all the ugly stuff from player safety and all of that, getting suspended, fines, you name it. That was what was costing him. And now it's the other way around where guys are going after him. And let's speak to that one. David Perron, especially, he's one of the players that has really been trying to get under Nazem Kadri's skin. Kadri is, he's usually known for this, but he has not let that get under his skin by any means. And he's continued to keep his head down, his head towards the net, and score spectacular goal after spectacular goal after spectacular goal. What do you make of the, I'll go to Evan for this one here. What do you make of the suspension, not the suspension, but the lack thereof, the discipline on David Perron's part? There's a couple clips, and I don't have them with me here, but the one of Nazem Kadri just skating off, and Perron just comes out of nowhere along the bench and starts going right at him. It didn't look like he was going to aggravate or get under the skin of Nazem Kadri, but more so going to, I don't want to use the word, but going out to really punish him. And yeah, they're like elbows up, man. What do you make of that? They gave him a $5,000 fine, I believe it was. I think it was for that play. But
yeah, it was for.
It was also for the cross check down.
You name it, man. He's getting fines where if you're going out like that towards a player, you could possibly turn into suspensions. What are your thoughts on it? And we'll end it there.
Yeah, it seemed like Perron was frustrated because Kadri was getting into it. I don't know who it was with, but it was like behind Colorado's net. And for whatever reason, that just lit a fire under David Perron and Colton Parayko, because they kind of like tag teamed Nazem Kadri right in front of his bench. But, this is a new Kadri that we're seeing where it's no retaliation. And I think I think the reason why we're seeing is because he has a great coach in David Bednar, and he has an even greater GM in Joe Sakic, who have kind of just, it seems like they have just said like, yo, our power play's good enough that we can punish them. So just, shut up. If you need to bite your tongue, bite it. If it comes off, we'll pay for a new one, but just keep it cool. We'll punish them in a different way. You could get your, FU back in a different way. And he did with a hat trick in a huge game 4. So, great for him for what he's doing. It sucks what happened. I can't believe, like, I felt bad for him, like with all those DMs that I don't know if it went through like his wife's phone, but I know his wife was the one that was like, that brought it up to reporters. And then just to see the support of the fans when they came back home yesterday or last night with like, we stand with you and all that. I think that was just awesome to see. And then Kadri recognizing that during warmups. But, the fact that David Perron did that, I mean, It's not like he did this like after he saw those reports of all the
No.
racist things. Like David Perron's a good guy. I think it's just heat of the moment stuff. And look, it's not like Nazem Kadri. I'm not trying to like beat up on him, but it's not like Kadri's the cleanest player. So it's not like David Perron's going after a good guy on the ice. Kadri is a pest. He's kind of like your Brad Marchand of the West, if you would like to say. And uh, but what Perron did, I think it's just heat of the moment, and I'm sure after the series, once it's all done, maybe an apology gets thrown out. But right now he can't really be worrying about that. He got the fine, and it's unfortunate, but it's whatever. It's playoff hockey. You take a little bit of a hit there with the fine, but just move on. Kadri's getting his what's it called? His cookie, I guess, with all the goals he's been scoring and helping Colorado. But I mean, I think it's a good. I take it as a compliment. It means you're getting in the head of St. Louis, and now with 2 games left in the series, it's exactly what you want.
And I mean, it was always oh, you want to add something, Jared?
Yeah, well, I just want to say one thing before we close it off. So for one thing, I want to go back to just the development and the growth of a player in Nazem Kadri, who, as you mentioned, we watched him a lot growing up in Toronto, where he used to be a guy that kind of had trouble containing his emotions. But now, as you mentioned, he's just learning to keep it on the ice and stay composed and just make them pay with the score sheet. And no Leafs fan that grew up watching Nazem Kadri as a young player in this league, no Leafs fan surprised to see him getting success right now. We always knew he was a very skilled player, but ultimately it was about getting those other things not entirely out of his game, because of course, as Evan mentioned, he does play a good pest role, but it's about finding a way to be productive beyond that on the score sheet. And all the kudos to him about just the way he's grown and progressed in his game, and he's becoming a lot smarter player out on the ice. And chances are, with the way how well Colorado's playing, with Kadri being a big part of that, this is a team that could see some success, all because of the level of play that Kadri's kind of elevated his game to. But as well, of course, giving all the praise to Kadri, I do want to as well talk about the St. Louis Blues. And I do get what Evan's saying in the sense that I don't think they're targeting Kadri because of the reports and things.
No.
But they ultimately, I was a little bit disappointed with the way they play. I mean, St. Louis is a team that I don't hate them. I mean, I predicted them to beat Minnesota. I knew that they were going to be a tough team, and I don't hate the team in general. But I found, especially in that game 4, which is the one that Kadri had a hat trick in, they let their entire focus on the game focus in on punishing a player because he ultimately ended up, I'd say, accidentally injuring their goaltender. That became their entire focus of the game, rather than we're in a big game in a big moment that would have made it a 3-2 series lead if they were to be able to steal that game. Ultimately, Colorado was able to walk all over them, especially Kadri was able to walk all over them because they were just pinning all their focus on one player, and it ended up leading them to go down 3-1. So I just think it was disappointing on the Blues with how they let their game entirely focus in on one player in one situation and punishing a player, rather than sticking to, okay, we're in a big playoff game right now, let's freaking find a way to win this. Ultimately, they couldn't get it done, and thankfully they ended up, or thankfully for them, their perspective ended up winning the game last night to keep this series going. But if they ended up losing it overtime last night, I think that would have been a big reason as to why they're sitting there on the golf course, is because we let our entire focus on one player rather than stick to the game, focus on scoring, focus on winning, because they're playing good hockey, but they entirely let themselves get distracted with sort of the extracurriculars and things like that.
Yeah, Jared, it's that's what pests do, man. That's the life of being a pest. You know what's worse than being a pest for the opposing team? It's a pest wearing hats, scoring a hat trick, getting goals, getting actual offensive support, and still managing to get under the skin of their opposition. That's been Nazem Kadri all year long, his whole career. And this time around, it's him doing it in the confines of the league. Call it luck. Maybe he's on a lucky run. I don't know. I don't think so. I think he's a different player. I think he's a different person who is grown into himself and knows what he's capable of doing, what he can and cannot get away with, and that his skill is just as great of a tool to punish another team as the other stuff around his game, the strength, you could call it dirty. He's had his dirty hits. He's had his dirty moments, but getting under guys' skin is not just a one-way street. It could be done in many different ways, shapes, and forms. And the league is just seeing it on full display come out of fruition from Nazem, the Dream, Kadri. But we're going to end it there. We're just over our limit on time for the hour mark, but that's all good, man. We had a great show nonetheless, but that brings a conclusion to season 2, episode 29 of the Leafs Line podcast, and a Domo-less episode of the Leafs Line podcast. Sadly missed. The tear has shedded once more. But thank you guys for tuning in. Again, I'm Mayor Russo, Evan Davis, and Jerry Rotenberg. Check us out on dynastysportsnetwork.ca. You can see it right on your screen. Can't click the link, but you can definitely go search it up on any time that you may think is appropriate. And you can find all our content, Leafs content, if you missed it today, and anything sports, man. It's a terrific thing that we've put together, and just displays what the world of sports has for us. But that does it for us. Signing off, Leafs Line podcast, closing it here.